So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. We're going to try this exercise and see what happens, okay? So I'd like for you to close your eyes just for a second. And I'm going to say a word. And I want you to tell me what image pops in your head, okay? The word is apple. All right? You can open your eyes now. So when I said apple, what came up for you? Red. Round. What else? What else came up?
The stem.
Okay. What else?
Delicious.
Okay. Right, so delicious. What else?
It could be also a computer.
Okay. All right. So did I say, when I told you to close your eyes, did I say anything about red? Did I say anything about round? Did I say anything about stem? Did I say anything about good or delicious? Did I say anything about a computer? No. So how did those things get into your head?
Stored.
Because it was stored? Okay. How is it that people communicate? How do we communicate?
By talking.
Okay.
Body language.
Okay.
And sign language.
Okay. We talked a little bit about, what was a grapheme again? What's a grapheme?
Graph.
A grapheme is a written letter, right? What's a phoneme? Phone means what? Telephone. What does phone mean? Phone means what? Tele means far. And what does phone mean? Phone means sound. So we put a grapheme and a phoneme together and we get a what?
A letter of sound.
We put a grapheme and a phoneme together and we get what? Starts with were and ends in d.
Word.
Yep, we get a word. Right? The way people communicate is that words create pictures. We actually do not communicate with words, we create with pictures. The reason when I said apple that you came up with round and stem and red and delicious and computer was because you had an image in your head, right? Saying the word apple could also get, I could get yellow, right? I could get pie, I could get all sorts of other things as well because it creates a picture, all right? So words create pictures. Pictures stimulate emotions, right? Have you ever heard a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? I've seen some, did anyone see that picture of the Americans that were burned and hung in Iraq over a bridge? Charred corpse. It was really gruesome. The pictures told me more than what the words could ever say, right? Or have you ever seen a beautiful baby being born, right? And the mother's holding the baby and the father's there and they're holding this beautiful child. it stirs some kind of emotion, right? Those Pulitzer Prize winning photographs that are in Life magazine or Time magazine, they stir up some type of emotion, all right? So how we communicate is that words create pictures and pictures stimulate our emotions. If you think about anything that, your most embarrassing moment, think about that, right? I'm sure you have some kind of picture that comes up in your mind, right? And I'm sure that that picture stimulates some type of emotion. Typically, it's more embarrassment, right?
Right.
All right. So it's more embarrassment. We have over 50,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot of thinking. 50,000 thoughts a day. All right? Your self-image or your beliefs are formed in three-dimensional thought. You communicate with words or language, which triggers pictures in your mind that bring out emotions. This thought process is called affirmation, which is a statement of fact about yourself. As you repeat your thought, it builds a strong belief, and your creative subconscious makes you act like your belief. If you learn to agree with or give sanction to what someone says about you, it becomes a part of your self-image. You must be able to filter information people are giving you to let the correct information in and keep the incorrect information out. You discover that one of the paths to your future success is controlling your self-talk to be positive and constructive. You also must reject the outside negative influences that affect your belief. So if I am, one of the problems I have is as a high school teacher, right? Young people like to listen to things that are cutting edge or anti-establishment, right? Anti-adult, right? But if we look at this, words create pictures and pictures stimulate emotions. Why would I have problems with some of the lyrics of the songs that they're listening to?
Well, one is not in your generation.
One is not in my generation, but if I'm looking at this, what am I concerned with?
The words
Because the words do what?
paint a picture.
They paint a picture, and those pictures do what?
Negative.
They stimulate some kind of emotion. So if the words are negative, what kind of picture do I get in my mind?
A negative one.
I get negative pictures in my mind. And what kind of emotions do those stir up?
Stirs up the negative.
The negative emotions, right? Yeah. At the same time, if I say good things to myself, what kind of pictures do I start to form?
Good picture.
Good pictures. And what kinds of emotions do I start to stimulate?
A happy, what is the word? I lost it.
That's all right.
A happy one.
Yeah, happy feelings, right?
Yeah.
Good feelings. Feelings that lead you to what? What's the ultimate focus of all of this stuff?
Learning about ourselves.
It's about learning about yourself, but to what end? All of this stuff needs to lead me where?
To the attitude that you have.
To my goal, right?
Goal.
All of this has to lead me to my goal. If it's not leading me to my goal, then I need to either change my goal or refocus how I think and act and feel about myself, right? All right. Oh. So all of this stuff helps us to, and these emotions start to have effect on our thoughts. And our thoughts build to become what? What do thoughts build to become?
Beliefs.
Beliefs. Right? And this is all about our self-talk, right? And we act.
Or would that be attitude?
This would be beliefs. Attitude would be a brother to a belief.
Okay.
right? So our habits, our beliefs, our attitudes all come from our thoughts, right? And we act not in accordance with the truth, but the truth as what?
As we believe it.
As we believe it to be, right? So if I'm saying the words, I am a failure, I picture a failure, I feel like a failure, I start to think like a failure, then I believe that I'm a failure, how am I going to act?
Like one.
I am going to act like a failure. And why do I act that way? Or behave? Why do I act this way?
Because the image that you have of yourself.
Yep, but where's all this stuff, where's this being stored?
Subconscious,
In our subconscious. And what is happening to our subconscious?
it's lies.
These things may be lies, but what happens to our subconscious? Why is it so important that we look at what stuff we're feeding into our subconscious?
Because that's going to go to the next level.
Which is what?
What is it called? Where is it?
Say it. It's right there.
Yeah, I know. Creative.
Yes, the creative subconscious, right? And the creative subconscious just says yes. So if I start here and I'm saying poor things about myself, and I get that picture and I stimulate that emotion, I get those thoughts, I believe it, I start to behave that way, my subconscious is going to say yes. And every time I go to try to accomplish something, what am I going to get out of it? I'm going to get negative stuff, right? Because the subconscious just is played by the creative subconscious. Conversely, if I say positive things to myself and I really start to picture those things, I start to stimulate some kind of emotion and I get those thoughts going, those thoughts will have effects on my attitude, on my beliefs, and my habits, and then on how I behave will change based on what I believe and what my habits and attitudes are. Okay? Have you guys have watched sports events where a person chokes, right? Why do they choke? Why do you think they choke? They have the skill to do the job, right? Or else they wouldn't be in whatever professional sport they're in. They've practiced. So why is it that people choke when the pressure's on?
Because of their belief system.
Because of their belief system, yep. And what do they believe?
They still believe that they can't do it.
Yeah, deep down they still believe that they can't do it, right? So you cannot act any better or any worse than what you believe yourself to be, right? We talked about the fact that if I was a C student and I got an A on a test, it may be difficult for me to study for this next test because I could fail it and still get my what? C, right? You cannot be any better or less than yourself. All right. Let's turn to page, I think it's 61, or 60 rather. Beliefs are formed by the way we think. Human beings think in these three-dimensional forms. You think with words or language, which triggers your pictures in your mind. Then the words bring about an emotion or feeling. That's why simple words like snake, for example, can conjure up an emotion of fear in people who are afraid of snakes. For example, if someone says to you, "You are wanted on the phone," it's an emergency. The three-dimensional form of thought is called self-talk. It is also called an affirmation, which simply is a statement of fact or belief that you make to yourself. This self-talk is the conversation you carry on in your mind with yourself all the time. Others may influence your beliefs. If someone calls you stupid and you agree with him or her, you are giving sanction to their opinion. If you agree with the outside appraisal or opinion of another person, it becomes a part of your self-image. You are more likely to give sanction to the opinions of someone you consider significant than someone whose opinion you do not value, right? Enemies, if enemies say things to you or about you, typically how do people respond to those things?
Bad, usually.
If enemies say them?
Oh,
Typically, if an enemy says something to you, you really don't care. Like, you can write that off as whatever. But if a loved one says something mean and hurtful to you, how do you take that? Do you write that off?
no, you don't.
You don't, right? You typically take that to heart and feel hurt about that thing. We can either be like my grandmother used to, well, she still does, has this cast iron pot. And her cast iron pot is really great for stuff like cornbread. Oh, she makes the best hot water cornbread, right? She'll pop that sucker in the oven and it's just bubbles over. It's delicious and oh. I made the mistake once of trying to wash it. And apparently that is an extreme no-no when it comes to cast iron pots, right? And so she's got all sorts of stuff that's caked in there and, you know, all sorts of just crazy stuff in there, which adds to the flavor, apparently, right? Which makes it good. So this cast iron pot is great for cornbread, right? But what about if I try to scramble eggs in that?
It won't taste as good.
It won't taste as good, but what else is going to happen?
It will burn.
It'll burn. What else will happen? What else will happen is the eggs will stick to the pot, right? They'll stick to the frying pan because it's not made to scramble eggs in, right? At the same time, if I scramble eggs in Teflon,
That's easier to.
oh, that's so much easier to stir, right? I get great eggs from Teflon, right?
Yep.
But what if I try to cook hot water cornbread in Teflon?
Well, no.
Right? Yeah, it's not going to turn out right, right? So we can either be like cast iron pots or we can be like Teflon, right? Where stuff sticks to us. What people say sticks to us, and we carry that stuff around to the next time we encounter somebody. Or we can become like Teflon and let what they say just slip right off of us.
Right.
All right? The formula I times V equals R explains how we picture reality. Imagination times vividness equals reality. So when you vividly imagine yourself performing well, then the high performance becomes the reality. High successful athletes use this technique all the time. They imagine the perfect performance and practice it over and over again in their minds until it becomes reality. Right? Have you guys ever seen that? Like at the Olympics, there are people sitting on the side. It looks like they're meditating or they're sleeping or they're chanting or that kind of stuff. Yeah. So look in the area of your life where you need to use your potential. If you examine your self-talk, you'll probably been recalling dumb things you've done before. How many times have you done that? Like you've done one dumb thing, and then all of a sudden you remember all the dumb things you've ever done in your life, right? Yeah, that's happened to me like tons, you know. One thing that's really interesting about the brain is the brain does not recall. It doesn't make a differentiation between a memory and something that actually happens. So if you remember how dumb you were once, and you remember it, your brain is actually playing it again as if it actually happened.
Like a cassette player.
Like a cassette player in your mind, right? And what happens after so many times of doing a thing or thinking a way? What happens? It becomes a what?
Habit.
It becomes a habit, right? So just in our thinking about who we are, we can form negative or bad habits for ourselves. All right? So let's stop right here. Let's take a 10-minute break. And what time is it currently?
It's 8:35.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's take a break and then we'll come back.